Good afternoon, church. Pastor Aaron here, and I'm here to make an announcement. Last night, I had the opportunity to sit down with our deacons and discuss the governor's announcement on Monday regarding guidelines for which churches could begin to open their doors back up and begin to worship and meet together again. Like many of you, myself and the deacons are excited and ready to gather as soon as possible. That being said, last night as we began to meet and talk about those guidelines that were in place and all of the details involved, everything from service times to getting a live broadcast in place instead of the pre-recorded one that we've been doing, sanitizing issues, getting our musicians back on board after kind of a long layoff, song selection, projection, going to 2 services so that we might be able to social distance, and then trying to assure that the attendance in each of those services are pretty even so that we aren't real lopsided. Getting in and out logistically of the building between services without a lot of bottlenecking. We just realized that there are some issues that we're going to need to go into planning rather than just opening up and hoping that the doors open. And so, quite a bit of that needs to be in place before we open up our doors. So with that in mind, what we are going to do is we're going to take one more Sunday, this coming Sunday, and worship like we have been for the past month and a half in this digital format. And then the following week, on Sunday, May the 17th, we will be opening our doors for you to come back into worship. I'm going to be releasing more details about the logistics of what that's going to entail and some of those things I just mentioned in the next week before that happens. But I do want to give you a few of the details. And the first of those is this, that until that we feel that it is of lesser risk and that perception has changed radically and shifted, then we are going to be practicing the recommended social distancing standards set forth that you've heard by the medical professionals and those that are in charge of making those decisions at the state and national level. And so we're going to be maintaining a 6-foot distance from one another while we are in the building from people that are not in your family unit. Additionally, we're going to be doing our very best to provide you with a safe and a clean environment to worship in. With that being said, that we do have a limited supply of things like hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies on hand. And we will be using those, but I also want to encourage you to bring whatever that you feel is necessary for your own comfort, whether that be bringing some hand sanitizer with you, whether you need to bring gloves, whether you want to wear a mask. And on that point, let me add a comment that we're not going to be requiring or mandating that anyone wear a mask inside the building. I think that's important to convey to you on the front end of things. You are certainly welcome to wear a mask and encouraged to do so if that provides you some extra level of comfort. But that will not be a requirement, and I want you to know that as you prayerfully consider when it's right for you to return to worship. Throughout this pandemic, I, like each of you, have formulated my own thoughts and feelings regarding our society's reaction in response to this virus. But what I've also sought to do in this time is to be a good listener. And as I've listened, it's very apparent to me that even within our own church family, there are varying and different levels of comfort and conscience regarding the coronavirus, as well as opening our nation back up. And those differences of opinion are absolutely okay. And so here's what I expect and ask of each of you: to be patient, to be understanding, and to be non-judgmental of those who might feel differently than you. It's important to respect one another in this process of trying to find a new normal, at least a temporary new normal. I don't want anyone to avoid coming back to worship because that they're afraid that someone will violate their desire to maintain that 6 foot of social distancing. Neither do I want someone to avoid worship because they're afraid of being lectured by another church member because they're not wearing a mask in public. So, my encouragement is to do what is right for you and do so without the judgment of other people. For some, that's going to mean that you want to hold off on coming for a few weeks. I know from the survey that I released that some of you took on Facebook in the last week or two that there's at least 20% of you out there in our own church body that will wait a little bit before you come back and feel comfortable. And that is perfectly fine. For those that cannot meet with us beginning on the 17th in person, we are going to continue our online forums, hopefully actually moving from, again, these pre-recorded videos to an online live service so that you get to take part not only in the message, but in the music service as well. And so we're going to be exploring that technology and how to tap into that in the next week. That's part of what we're going to be doing in this intervening time. And so I want you to know that you're not going to miss out on anything. You're not going to be thought less of if you don't return immediately. And there's certainly no judgment there. It'll be a blessing to see you when you feel that you're ready. For those that are ready to come back, here's what you need to know. Beginning a week from this Sunday, on that 17th of May, that we're going to open our doors, but we're going to do so for 2 separate, identical services. The services will have the same content per the guidelines set forth by the governor. We will not be offering at this time any children's church or nursery these first few weeks. Additionally, there's not going to be any life groups or some of you say Sunday school classes during this phase 1. And so just these 2 worship services, those times for these worship services will be at 9 and 10:30 in the morning. And I imagine that when you come, that it's going to look a little bit differently. The service, that is, will look a little bit differently than what we're accustomed to. There's not going to be a greeting time. We're used to hugging people and shaking hands, and we're an affectionate church, and I love that about us, but it's going to have to look a little bit different right now. There's no greeting. The prayer time that we normally have, where we normally have altars full of people coming to pray, that's going to not be the case at this point in time. We're going to pray from where we're seated in the church. There's not going to be an altar call necessarily. There will be an opportunity to respond in decision, but that will probably take place by getting with me or another member of the deacons or staff after church if you need to have someone pray or counsel with you. There will not be the passing of an offering plate. Giving can still be done for the foreseeable future online if you've been giving in that fashion, or you are certainly welcome to give in the service, but it'll be on the way out, and there'll be some directions given about that as we get closer to that time. Hopefully, these 2 services will provide us adequate room to be able to follow the social distancing guidelines. We do, however, need some information from you, and so if you are watching this video on social media, you will quickly see a couple of different polls. I don't know that we're going to be able to put them up in the same message on Facebook, but I would like to know if you have intentions on coming at the 9 o'clock hour or in the 10:30 hour. And then we also need to kind of know how many are in your family units and kind of get an average there. And so hopefully we are trying to make these services pretty even in attendance. And so if we need to do some adjusting, I'll come forward with some more information in the next week. It's almost certain to be a little different for a while when we meet together. But I am excited that we're making inroads and preparations to meet together in any format at this point in time. So my request of you is to be both patient and prayerful for us in this next week and a couple of days as we near the time for our reunion. Please be watching for further announcements about the logistics and the things that we are asking of you as you come into the building, as you exit the building, the time between services. And so some of that will be forthcoming. Just be watching for it. And I thank you for your love, for your patience, and certainly for your faithfulness during this time. I hope to see you very soon. Excited to see you when the 17th rolls around, if you feel well and up to that. If not, I look forward to the time when God calls us back together. Love you guys. See you soon.